All right, so welcome. This is the beginning of chapter 3, 3.1, Statements and Logical Connectives. So this is an introductory lesson to what we're going to be doing in the rest of chapter 3. So make sure you pay real close attention to these symbols and their meanings. So the little squiggly mark there, that's negation, and the meaning is not. The upside down V is conjunction, that stands for and. Disjunction looks like a V, and that means or. Conditional is one arrow, and that's an if-then statement. So if this occurs, then this must occur. And biconditional is a double-sided arrow. This means that it's if this happens, then only. If this happens, then only if this only if this occurs, of course. Okay. All right. Let me repeat that. If this happens, only if this occurs first. Okay. All right. So pay close attention to these arrows down here because you have some sentences that you have to pay attention to. So when we say all are, notice it cross-references to some are not. Okay, so when we all are, some are not. Okay, when some are, none are. Okay, so this is kind of like a cross-reference list down here at the bottom. So make sure you pay close attention to this, especially when you're reading some of these statements. All right, let's get into some examples here. Example number 1. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit so we can see example 1 a little bit closer. All right, example number 1, we have let P and Q represent the following statements. So P is flour and eggs are not ingredients in a cake. Q is there are 9 notes in a major scale. Express the following statement symbolically. Flour and eggs are ingredients in a cake. All right, so we're not talking about notes. So we're not talking about Q at all. We're talking about flour and eggs are ingredients in our cake. Now, P says flour and eggs are not ingredients in a cake. All right, so we're going to do the negation of P, which means not P. So symbolically, this statement should be read as not P. All right, and that is my answer. All right, so again, section 3.1 is just an introductory lesson to get you comfortable with the symbolage, okay? The symbols that are going to take place throughout the rest of chapter 3. All right, example number 2. Write the statement in symbolic form. Let P and Q represent the following statements. Statement P, the skiers are happy. Statement Q, the mountain is covered in snow. All right, so we have this statement down here, this combined statement here, and this is what we're trying to write right here. Okay, is this combined statement. The mountain is not covered in snow. Notice it does say the word not, okay, which is opposite from what Q says, because Q says the mountain is covered in snow, okay? So let's write that first. We have the mountain is not covered in snow, which is the opposite of Q, so that would be not Q. We also see this word or, which is tying the two statements together, P and Q. So we see or. How do I write or? Or is written with a V, okay, with a V. And then the skiers are not happy. Ooh, again, we have that word not. I look back at my statement P up there, and I noticed that statement P says the skiers are happy. So in this case, the skiers are not happy, so that is going to be not P. All right, and there is my answer. Okay, not Q or not P. All right, example number 3. Let P and Q represent the following statements. Statement P, this is an octopus. Statement Q, the aquarium is full of fish. Write the following statement in its symbolic form. All right, so again, we're trying to write this statement right here. First part of the statement, this is not an octopus. Not. Okay, I'm going to tie that back to which statement? I think it's statement P. But P says this is an octopus, and we're going to say this is not an octopus. So that means we're going to do not P. All right, so how is this written? It's going to be not P. Okay, now we need to take care of our second half of our statement, but the aquarium is full of fish. Okay, now this is a little misleading when we see like two statements that are put together, like with a comma and that word but, we have to think of and. Okay? Which means we are going to use that upside down V. Okay? So this is going to be not P and the aquarium is full of fish. Does that match statement Q? Yes, it does. So we're just going to put Q here. Okay? Because it matches exactly what statement Q states. Okay? Statement Q says the aquarium is full. My combined sentence says the aquarium is full of fish. All right, example number 4. Let P and Q represent the following simple statements. Statement P, I work hard. Statement Q, I get a raise. Write the following compound statement in symbolic form. I work hard or I do not get a raise. Okay, so we see that word or there. Okay, we wrote or just a little bit ago, okay? But let's talk about that first statement. I work hard. Does that match one of my statements up there at the top? Yes, it does. That would be statement P. Okay. Now let's write the word or. Or is that V. Okay. That stands for or. Okay. Now the second part of my compound sentence. I do not get a raise. Interesting. It does have the word not in there. Let's see. Does that match Q? Statement Q said I get a raise. We are trying to write I do not get a raise. So that means we have to use negation, which means not Q. That is my answer for example 4. All right, so I'm going to zoom out here a little bit so you can see all 4 examples. So again, this is a introductory lesson to get you used to the symbolage, okay, or the symbols that are involved that we're going to use throughout the rest of chapter 3. So again, make sure you work on this 3-1 homework and get used to these symbols because you're going to see them time and time again.